Fun fact about Brian Robinson Jr. Brian Robinson Jr. in total points this year is the running back 5 in fantasy.
I literally never would have guessed it.
The running back 5.
I'm not kidding.
Looking at Brian Robinson in the last 5 or 6 games here, 9 points, 11 points, 27 points, 20 points, and 8 points. He's either getting like 10, 11 points, or he's getting 20 plus. It's just, it's there, it's not. It's there, it's not. And some of it depends on his receiving upside. The game where he had 27 and 20 points, he had 6 targets for 119 yards, and then 9 targets and 59 yards the next game where he had 20. So a lot of that is dependent on how much they're going to throw the ball. Now, Brian Robinson, he's an interesting case because, again, right now, the statistics show that he's a pretty good running back. And when you're looking at the fantasy points, the only running backs that are still in front of him, McCaffrey, Mostert, which crazy, he's still up there, by the way, Etienne, Jacobs, and then B-Rob. That is quite the list. It has been such a bad year for running back. I'm just going to hold Brian Robinson. When I'm looking at the running back usage for the Commanders and I see that he's, they're essentially splitting it maybe 2.5, 3 ways. Like they're giving Chris Rodriguez, there are times where there are no backs in the field as well. So when you're considering those plays, I mean, it's kind of a 50-50 split, but then here's what I'm looking at. Brian Robinson at the goal line gets the only carry last week.
Yeah.
Also getting the short yardage. Antonio Gibson's obviously on the field for 2-minute drill and third downs. But it's almost like the Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet thing. Like until Zach Charbonnet, like when Kenneth Walker's playing, takes those goal line carries, Kenneth Walker still has to be startable. And so I think Brian Robinson's going to be startable. Here's the reason that I'm doing that. And you've seen Brian Robinson's touches throughout the season kind of go up, and it's just volume. And you just don't have enough running backs right now that are getting that type of volume. And honestly, I still don't think anybody's paying anything for Brian Robinson.
No, it's definitely not a sell. I honestly, at first glance, I almost wanted to say buy because at this price and how scarce running back is right now, it's like, why not buy one of the cheapest running back ones
offense hasn't been bad
at the moment, and their offense hasn't been that bad. I'm still going to shy away from saying buy, and here's why. 3.5 touchdowns over expected. You just said the goal line carries. We don't really know how – we know that touchdowns are volatile. We don't know how often Brian Robinson is going to continue to get those. And, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're making a playoff push, when you're in the playoffs and you're relying on these running backs to put up big games, how much are you relying on Brian Robinson to do that? Have you trusted him at all this season? Now, granted, again, how many running backs have you trusted at all this year in total? Not very many, but Brian Robinson is no exception. He's not one of those guys that I'm going out and trying to purchase for really that much at all. Again, your situation could be different than everyone else's, where you get him at a really good price, but I'm just, in general, I'm not going and I'm not trying to buy him right now.
Yeah, and you're looking at his schedule. I mean, the Dolphins, Rams, Jets, and 49ers. It's a mixed bag there.
Not good.
But
not friendly.
But again, like, it's if he gets a touchdown and if he gets any, receptions, it is interesting. I just hold at this point. Corrin Sutton is the next guy here. Corrin Sutton has actually had a fairly solid year this year. It's kind of flown under the radar because the Broncos were so bad to start, and then they've gotten better progressively, and now they're kind of Broncos controllers ride again.
Trying to make a playoff push.
And Corrin Sutton, 17 points, 16 points, and 10 points in his last 3 games.
Classic.
Average up to target is 70th in the league right now, and he's 54th in deep targets, meaning what? He's getting a lot of short yardage targets, which a lot of times you like to see. He's 7th in red zone targets. He's been one of the better red zone receivers in the league this year. 10th in target quality rating, so the targets have been good. 7th in catchable target rate. 21st in fantasy points per game, and 43rd in expected fantasy points per game, meaning he is overperforming slightly based on what would be expected given the opportunity, given the quality of targets that he is getting. A lot of this has to do with the touchdowns. I can tell you right now, a lot of it has to do with the touchdowns.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He has 8 touchdowns this year.
And again, I think some of his production has just been propped up by that. When you're looking at the
All
games,
of it.
This actually makes total sense. Cortland Sutton in the games where he doesn't get a touchdown gets about 10 points. And in the games where he gets a touchdown, gets like 16, 17 points. Yeah. That's what you've seen recently. Yeah. I don't expect that to change. And so let's look at the schedule and make our decision here. The Texans, the Chargers, the Lions, the Patriots, and the Chargers. Wow, I was going to say sell. Now I'm not. You play the Chargers twice?
Lucky him. Well, do you think Staley will be fired by then?
No, I don't trust the Chargers to do that.
Why would they do something that makes sense?
Yeah. No, that doesn't make any sense, Nathan.
Here's my question for you.
Okay.
Because it's not like the Broncos have, played the most top-notch defenses consistently all year anyways. They've had some friendly matchups. Am I winning a fantasy championship because of Cortland Sutton and his upside?
He definitely doesn't have
what's his
ceiling.
upside? What's his ceiling?
25 points.
That's being super duper generous. I was going to say 17 to 20 points is his ceiling.
Let's see. I thought he did score like 25 in a game this year.
I'll pull up his game log
you're
here.
right.
No, the highest points he scored this year are 19.
Yeah, okay. So no, his ceiling is 20 points. Like that's his absolute ceiling.
His absolute ceiling.
Meaning the most likely range of outcomes is anywhere between like 11 and 14 points.
Yeah.
And wide receiver's not been bad enough for me to bite on this, I don't think.
No.
So, but I don't think I'm selling him with the schedule.
Even though he's like literally objectively touchdown dependent. If you're in the playoffs, if you're in the last couple weeks before going into the playoffs,
he's only had 3 games without a touchdown this season.
3 games without a touchdown. In those games, he scored 9, 2, and 11 points.
So we're going to say sell.
Corrin Sutton does not score a touchdown. Corrin Sutton is probably the reason you lose a game if you're depending on him scoring you a lot of points.
So you want to do sell?
I would go sell because I think people look at that run that he had in the middle of the year where, I mean, it's Gabe Davis. I mean, that's 5 straight games
Gabe
of scoring
Davis with
a touchdown.
higher floor is what he is.
Yes, he is. Yep. But a higher floor, but a way lower ceiling.
Way lower ceiling, yeah, because Gabe Davis can score.
At that point,
I mean, Gabe Davis' ceiling this year has been 22, 23 points.
Every single week, I'd rather gamble on Gabe Davis than I would on
Gabe
Cortland
Davis
Sutton.
has had 2 0-point games in the last 4 games.
Yeah, I know.
In the games where he had 10 and 22 points in the last.
It's just classic Gabe Davis.
Look at the games where Gabe Davis doesn't score touchdowns. This is 3 points, 1 point, 0 points, and 0 points, and 9 points. And then the games where he scored touchdowns, 22, 23, 22, 15, 10, and 21.
Yeah. My verdict would be to sell Cortland Sutton. There is nothing that makes me feel good about starting him on a weekly basis. If you can get a pretty solid piece with a higher ceiling for him, then I would go ahead and bite there. Otherwise, you're just stuck with him on a fringe start, fringe bench kind of player. Yeah. Kyren Williams is going to be our next guy. He kind of took
fairly ridiculous
the fantasy world by storm his first game back. Was he actually injured, or did he just decide to take a break? Because he came back like he had never been injured. Only, of course, missed 4 games. It felt like longer because everyone was so desperate for him to come back. 38 points, average 9 yards per carry, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 61 yards. I mean, this is an Austin Eckler stat. This is wildly efficient with your receiving upside, and this is like given only 16 carries, you just do that with all of your carries. 9 yards per. Come on. That's impressive. I mean, side note, Dynasty, this is starting to make me think about Kyren Williams for Dynasty. How much value will he have for the next couple of years? I don't know. We'll see. But the opportunity he's been getting, the goal line carries, man, he owns them. Early downs, he has majority. Total plays, he owns them. Short yardage, third downs.
Literally every category.
2-minute drill, he's their guy. He's clearly their guy. I think.
I don't think anybody's selling him, though.
No. Not at all, because people, again, were so desperate for him to come back. So you have to say, hold. If you're lucky, I mean, I guess buy him if you can get him at a discount. No one's selling him at a discount.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not getting him at a discount.
No.
He's a hold.
You're looking at their matchups over the next few weeks. They got the Cleveland Browns December 3rd. They got the Ravens, the Commanders, the Saints, and the Giants. So very so-so. He's got some tough matchups against the Browns and the Ravens. But even though they have good run defenses, like his receiving usage is good enough where I'm not really worried about that at all. And he's got an awesome playoff schedule, honestly. Over the last 3 weeks of the season, they got the Washington Commanders, the Saints, and the Giants. I mean, what better matchups could you ask for offensively, really? I mean, yeah, the Saints have a decent run defense. They really do. You got to give them respect where respect is due, but it's not like they've been the hottest that they've been all season. I don't think they're going to have a great final stretch at the end of the season.
He's just the guy there. He's just the guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I would love to say buy, but no one's selling him. No one's selling him, and you have to pay a ridiculous price to get him at this point. So yeah, hold him.
Yeah. Calvin Ridley, of course. Last 3 games, 4 points, 31 points, 21. As soon as we rang the gong, 50 points in the last 2 weeks.
In Dynasty. Come on. We were right in Dynasty.
Okay, that's true. But still, the gong did get gonged.
We were also right in Fantasy when we said, for those of you who wanted to make a high-risk playoff push, that were desperate for production for the second half of the season, that had high upside, go and get Calvin Ridley because he's never been cheaper than he is right now. And that's paid off over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and so we talked about how Cortland Sutton was touchdown dependent. Let's look at Calvin Ridley's game log and look at the games where he has scored touchdowns, because there's a pretty clear trend here. In the games he scored touchdowns, 21 points, 31 points, 11 points, 24 points. In the games where he has not, 5 points, 7 points, 20 points, 6 points, 1 point, 14 points, 4 points. A lot of hit and miss there when he doesn't score a touchdown. And so what this comes down to is, do you trust the Jags offense and do you expect him to get touchdowns? An interesting stat that our guy Kyle found. When Zay Jones is playing on the field this year, Calvin Ridley, 20 points per game in PPR leagues. When Zay Jones is out, 7 points per game. 7.
You know what that tells me? That tells me the impact of Zay Jones on the field from an NFL perspective is very significant for that Jags offense clicking on all cylinders and being very effective. And clearly, I mean, yeah, Zay Jones, he is what he is from a fantasy perspective, but that does clearly massively help Calvin Ridley when he's healthy. Stretches the field, opens up opportunities for Calvin Ridley underneath to get the opportunities he's been getting the last couple of weeks. I think that's very, very telling. But at the same time, and this is maybe a counterpoint, not even countering you, but just like, what has ETN done the last couple of weeks since Calvin Ridley's done this? Nothing.
So talk about ETN then.
Nothing.
Or what are you doing with ETN?
Well, I mean, same matchup for ETN, same matchups for the rest of the year as Calvin Ridley. They got the Bengals, the Browns. Those are two tough matchups. The Ravens, oh yeah, another tough matchup. Then they get some cupcakes in Tampa Bay and Carolina.
Yeah.
So those are good. But that's the last 2 weeks of the year. That's the semifinal and the championship. How many of you that own ETN and Calvin Ridley and try to ride them out for the rest of the year are going to survive that stretch of Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Baltimore?
Probably not many people.
Probably not many, which is why, personally, I don't know what are you leaning with Ridley before we get to ETN really fully?
With Ridley, I'm going sell. Like,
you're going sell because of the
I
inconsistency.
don't believe in the offense. I don't believe in Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley to get him the touchdowns he needs to produce at a high level for the rest of the year.
And I think I'd agree with you there on Ridley. And ETN, like we said earlier, ETN is going to be the reason for me. ETN's production the last 3 weeks has been very, very bad. 6, 8, and 12 points. Tougher matchups against San Francisco. Easy matchup against Tennessee. So-so matchup against Houston.
So.
We were wrong about Travis Etienne going into this year because of his production. He's obviously produced at a way higher level than we ever expected him to. We thought his volume was going to go down because of Doug Peterson's usage of running backs historically. We were dead wrong on that. He's gotten more carries than ever. He's second in the league in carries right now with 174. His targets are fine, 42 targets, 8th in the league, but his red zone touches are nothing to write home about. 23 red zone touches. This is something where we were right about his efficiency. We question his volume, which we were wrong about. We question his efficiency, which we were right about. His efficiency is so bad, it has resulted in him being very, very touchdown dependent and receiving usage dependent. How explosive can he be with his receiving usage? And guess what? The last 3 weeks, he hasn't done crap with that usage. 4 targets for 2 receptions and 9 yards. 3 targets, 3 receptions, 7 yards. 6, 4, 30 yards against Houston. Before that, I mean, it was a lot better than that. This year, he has 5 touchdowns over expected. If you didn't sell Travis Etienne 5 weeks ago, I sell him now for less. Sell him at a discount, I guess. Because in my opinion, I could be wrong again, but I'm going to double down on Etienne. There's absolutely no way he maintains his production for towards the end of the year. Yeah. Not with those matchups, not against Cleveland. Not against Baltimore, not against the Bengals. The Bengals have a very underrated defense. I like them a lot. Maybe he has a couple good games to end the season against some poor defenses, but my goodness, there's just no way. there's no way for me. I'm not buying it. I'm selling ETN. I'm selling Ridley. I don't trust anyone in the Jags offense. They haven't been consistent all year.
Last guy here, James Conner. James Conner in the last 3 games, 7 points, 8 points, 7 points. And a lot of people are looking at the running back usage chart for the Cardinals this week and saying, well, Michael Carter's clearly eating into his workload. So let's keep this in mind. Carter got 3 snaps in the first 3 quarters of that game. And in the fourth quarter, they decided to give Michael Carter the ball 24 out of the 27 times they snapped it. He was getting garbage time points. This chart is actually a lie. This is when you actually need to do your homework. James Conner's still the guy there. That game was weird. James Conner still a guy that, honestly, he's disappointed compared to what we thought he would do. he's still a guy that's getting a lot of opportunity. And with that, and with the fact that he's disappointed, I wouldn't mind buying him for the playoffs.
He's very efficient with his opportunities still, though, and that's one thing that we were a big fan of, James Conner's efficiency going up, and it has 4.5 yards per carry over the last 3 games. His receiving usage has been fine the last couple weeks as well, and it really has just been, he's gotten the goal line opportunities, he just hasn't been able to punch it in. I'd expect 1 or 2 of those to go into the end zone over these next 2 weeks, and you'll see really his usage, his points overall go up significantly.
Yeah. All right. Again, we're kind of getting out of the time to buy and sell players in fantasy and really just more focusing the playoffs. And so this is going to be our last buy sell hold of the year. We really enjoyed doing these videos, but again, we're really focusing our attention to the playoffs now. We're going to make a video about playoff strategy as well. But do us a huge favor if you haven't already. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. So if you would, just please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We'll see you later.